for lack of a better word, is good. Greed is right. Greed works. Greed clarifies, cuts through, and captures the essence of the evolutionary spirit.
The 1980s was the so-called decade of greed, made famous in the classic film Wall Street. It was a time when 20 to 40-somethings who lived a certain lifestyle became known as yuppies, or young urban professionals.
Tom McGrath explores this phenomenon and its impact in a new book. It's called Triumph of the Yuppies, America, the 80s, and the Creation of an Unequal Nation. Hello to you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, so talk a little bit about what's in the book and why you think yuppies are sort of to blame for perhaps what we're seeing today.
Well, the book is really the first ever history of 1980s yuppies. I kind of track where they came from and also why they were so influential. This isn't really a book about an entire era, as you allude to. It's the era when greed becomes really prevalent and when really there's a kind of a divide in the country that starts to form between people with really good educations and affluent jobs and kind of everybody else. And I think, we're still very much in the middle of that divide right now.
Yeah, I'm sure not all the Gordon Geckos were hippies, but I imagine some of them were. So maybe I'll just ask the general question. What happened between that 60s mindset and that 80s mindset? What caused this shift?
I think a couple things happened. I think some of those who were caught up in the 60s, they grew up a little bit, sort of focused a little bit more on their career. But the other thing that happened was that the economy in the 1970s in the U.S. was pretty rough, and people figured out that if they wanted to, quote, get ahead, they were going to really have to focus on their careers and try and make as much money as possible. So there's a couple of different things happening at once.
Does the book then shift into what we're seeing today and sort of the modern day yuppie?
Yeah, I try and connect the dots between what was happening 40 years ago and where we are today. And as I say, I think we still have that divide between, some small group part of the country that has good educations and really good jobs and everybody else. And I think that's sort of infusing our politics, our culture wars, a lot of the stuff that we see today, because there are definitely still yuppies among us.
Is the origination of that mindset of trickle-down economics, and do you get into that? Is there some science that weighs in for a verdict on trickle-down economics?
Sure. I mean, this is all part of the same cultural movement, the movement that's happening at the same time in the early 1980s, and so a more rightward shift when it comes to economics was happening at the same time that yuppies were kind of coming to the fore. I think what we've seen over 40 years is that trickle-down economics may help grow the economy overall, but it doesn't grow it equally. So you have people at the top doing very, very well, and the rest of the country kind of struggling to get along.
Okay. Sometimes it's easy to talk about some of these things, but I think oftentimes people are looking for solutions and answers. Does your book offer any of that?
I get into that a little bit at the end. I mean, one of the big things we saw in the 80s was the disappearance of America's manufacturing sector. And I think, that was a crucial loss because it gave good middle-class jobs to people that didn't have college educations. I think we need to figure out a way to get back to that, to figure out how people that didn't go to college, which is more than half the country, can still have good jobs that let them have a middle-class kind of living.
Does that make unions more important to try and balance out, as you say, it grows the economy, but only for the top 1%?
Yeah, I do think unions are important. I mean, over the last 40 years, we had seen the decline of unions' power, and I think unless you have strong unions, that's a kind of a balancing out in terms of how money gets distributed. And unions can fight for better wages, not just for their own members, but it has the ability to sort of lift wages across the economy.
All right.
Can you just, we've been talking about policy here, and I just want to ask about the yuppie as a caricature. There was this sort of, smarminess about them. Is that fair, and did that go away, or does it just look different?
Yeah, that was certainly fair. I mean, yuppies were very much into success, whether it was in money and career, but it was also into how they dressed, what they ate, the cars that they drove. It was very much about, status and showing off how well you were doing. And we still see that today. Some of the actual products are different. The style is a little bit different, but there's still that sense of look at me, look how successful I am. I think we definitely still see that today.
And now it's all on social media.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah, that's right. It's even worse.
All right. Thank you so much. The book is Triumph of the Yuppies, America, the 80s, and the Creation of an Unequal Nation. For more, check out Tom's website and follow him on X.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.